Hello, Tina Jesson here, and welcome to your next segment of training. In this segment, we're going to be looking at the idea of mindset and how mindset can really be the major thing that holds us back when we're looking to grow our business. And by focusing on developing a new mindset, we can really start to leverage new results. So we run a retreat, a training retreat, which sometimes you have to take a step back and really work and think about your business before you can move on to the next stage. And sometimes you have to take a break from the day-to-day, the grind, to give yourself some space to actually think and enjoy some me time. And rather than think of it as a nice to have or a luxury that we can't really afford, can I just say we can't afford not to, because we do need that downtime to regroup and to think through things a little bit more clearly. And that's what I'm really encouraging you to do as we step through this program. And I think this little quote is very true. You can't pour from an empty cup. You need to take care of yourself. And I think as women in business, we're trying to wear so many hats and have so many roles. It's very easy for us to basically be running on empty. And I know that's certainly happened quite a lot in my life. We kind of keep going and keep going and keep going. And then you realize that you're starting to get sick. Maybe you start to get a cold or aches and pains, or if you're anything like me, I tend to lose my voice when I'm not well. And then you realize that's your body telling you that you need to just stop and take a break and take care of yourself. So again, something I'm encouraging you to do without the guilt is to stop, take care of yourself, because you can't be any good to anyone else. You can't pour from an empty cup. Now, I remember my grandmother telling me as a child that I could be selfish. And if you're anything like me, we might have grown up thinking that selfish is bad. But I think to be a little self-focused, which is a way I like to describe it more than selfish, is to be more self-focused, and that is not a dirty word, because you do have to kind of fit your own oxygen mask on first before you're in any position to help anyone else. So to take a little bit of time for self-care and a little bit of self-focused time is really going to be important as we develop our businesses and as we strive to get to that next level. So selfish isn't a dirty word. Put your own oxygen mask on first before you're able to actually help anyone else. Now, there's another thing that we do as women business owners is we try to do it all ourselves. This idea of being some kind of Wonder Woman, that we're a good wife, a good mother, we cook and we clean and we do everything. And I came across this little quote: stress equals someone trying to repair every situation solo. And I think that is so typical of women in business, anyone in business almost. We try and do it all ourselves because we can, rather than taking a moment to stop and think, is that just because we can do it, should we actually be doing it? And can we get help, maybe around the home, maybe with childcare? So it's taking some of the pressure off us, so we're not feeling like we have to do it all on our own. I think that's a really important thing to kind of keep in mind, that you're not going to win any awards for doing it all yourself, especially if it burns you out. and you've not got any me time to kind of replenish your heart, your soul, your body, and actually building recovery time for when we are working so hard. And it might be that we're not able to take a vacation, but we can certainly take a day off or some downtime, go and get our hair done or our nails done. And building in a little bit of me time, I think, is a really important part of looking after ourselves so that we can be of best service to others. And also to remember that God will never give us anything we can't handle. As we go through life, we're kind of being stretched and taken in all sorts of directions. And it's in those moments of growth that we really start to step into our uniqueness, and know that whatever those hurdles are, we think of them more as learning opportunities that help us to stretch and grow our capabilities. And God or the universe or whatever it is that you believe in, that opportunities in life will come along, but there'll always be something that you can handle, and not to stress. And I know it's easy for us to say don't stress over these things, but stress happens in a moment, and it's mainly because we're worrying about things that haven't actually happened yet. So in any given moment, I think if we can be really grateful, it's hard to be stressed over something if we're grateful for the stuff that we have got and that we can do, and that we can rely on people around us, and that we're not on our own, and that we'll never be given anything that we can't actually handle. And don't worry about other people's opinion of you. I think as long as you're stepping out into the world with greater intent, and you're not on this earth to impress people, only to love and care and show kindness, other people's opinions don't matter. But probably more significant than that, other people's opinions, actually they don't really have one. They don't care. And I know when we go on social media, we can sometimes see the naysayers, but those are the people we need to tune out, and not get fixated, because once we start getting other people's opinions of us kind of stuck in our heads, it really does stop us from stepping into our unique brilliance and becoming everything that we want to become, everything we want our business to become, everything we want our lives to become. So not worrying about other people's opinions. What do they say? Those that care don't matter, and those that matter don't care. So ignore that, and our job really is just to go out into the world and show as much love as possible. And I think this is a really important thing to remember, is that nothing is permanent. So there's no point in stressing yourself too much, because no matter how bad things are today, things will change. And life is a little bit of a roller coaster where we have highs and lows. I always think that when I get my lows, it just makes the highs taste so much sweeter. And when I have the highs, I know I can't sustain it, and at some point things will smooth out, or I'll come off that crest. And that's okay, because that's what makes life interesting. It's what makes life exciting. And not to stress too much, because you end up working through it, and when you're on the other side of it, you realize that it wasn't such a bad thing. It's just the fear of moving into a situation that can hold us back, and why recognizing that when we're talking about mindset is so fundamental, that we know when we have these blockers that come along, and when our stress is high, and then what can we do, maybe on a physiological level, to resolve it. I like to exercise and go for a run. That helps me on a physiological level to get oxygen in my lungs, and my body feels better, and I kind of get out of my head and more into my body. Different people have different ways of managing stress. There's positive and negative ways of that. Sometimes, having a glass of wine, probably not the best way. But knowing that you will transition, and you can put up with a lot of things for a short period of time, as long as you don't make it a permanent thing, then you can work through these challenges that we get on a daily basis. And although fate presents us with various circumstances as we go through our lives, it's how we react that really matters, and that is really about strength of character or our emotional muscle. And that all leads back to the whole concept of having a more positive mindset. Mindset is more than just positive thinking, though. It's really working through, it's not really necessarily just saying, oh, I can do this, although that helps. It's much deeper than that. It's more about rallying all your potential and knowing. I think there's a belief in there, there's a knowing in there that you will get through this, and that there's no point getting annoyed or angry or frustrated in the moment, because that wastes so much energy. So look at well, this is where we are, this is where we need to be, what steps can I possibly take, and just work through the issue rather than spending all this effort and angst and emotion and energy worrying or talking about it or getting frustrated over it or banging on about it. I mean, can you imagine the amount of effort if you put that into working out the solution, how much further that would take you, and be much less physically disabling and exhausting for you, that you just channel that energy into, okay, we did this, now we need to kind of move through it. So I remember somebody telling me when I was, very young, probably my first job, that attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching? Because if you surround yourself with naysayers, it's going to bring your energy down, it's going to bring you down. And there are people that you may know, circles that you may mix with, that just pull you down. And if you can surround yourself with people with more positive attitudes, with healthier emotional muscle, healthier mindsets that are looking for a way forward rather than looking to blame or to just kind of keep churning over the bad stuff, attitude is very much the first step. And then the mindset and the mindset shift that you can move into is definitely the next step for solving problems and for living life as a whole. Now, I was recently speaking at an expo for young girls between the ages of 11 and 18, and I was asked to talk on etiquette and good manners. But it really got me thinking about how we actually turn up in the world at a more general level. And what I realized is that people will forget what you say. People will even forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And certainly in my business, in hospitality, that it basically underpins the whole concept of hospitality. But beyond service, when we're creating a business, we're serving others, and it's how we make them feel. It's how they come to us when they first find us, and then it's how, through that interaction that we have with them, it's how we basically make them feel by the time they leave their interaction with us. So really important, I think, to stress that people forget what you say and people forget what you did, but they will never forget that moment on how you made them feel. And often when we turn up in life, we are scared to play big. We are sometimes feel that we have to play small, and we are frightened. There is a fear inside of us that should we be so bold to go out into the world? But I love this quote from Maya Angelou, and basically saying this whole concept of success is loving life and daring to live it. I think that's something that means so much to me, because I have dared to go out into the world and create something, which is what my business allows me to do, and to stand up for what I want and what I don't want, and to kind of boldly go out and step out into the world, and love what I do and do what I love, and being very intentional about living that kind of life, and not feeling like I have to cower in the corner or make myself small, but to really step into the world. And I think for us all to have that strength in our heart to do that is probably the most daring thing that we can do to maximize our opportunity here on this earth, and to really live that. So success is an attitude, it's a mindset, it's an intention, a deliberate decision, a commitment, a promise, a belief deep in your heart that it can be done, that it should be done, and it will be done. Now, it doesn't have to happen immediately. Life does need to unfold, so patience in there is important. But to make that commitment, a promise to yourself, and believing that that's how life should be lived, and stepping into that, and enabling that to be done. And this is something I really strive for myself, is not to be mediocre. Certainly in the businesses that I've run, I'm looking to set standards. I'm looking to be outstanding, because mediocrity is, well, I was going to say is death. For a business, I think it is. Just to be in the middle of the road, to be doing average, to be doing okay, is you're not going to be noticed. And to actually dare to be outstanding and be someone, or become who you really are inside. We talk a lot about growing from the inside out. And when we get really true to our core of who we are, we can be bold and we can be brave enough to stand out and become outstanding in our communities, within our business, the things that we do within our business, within our lives, so that we are noticed, but not because we're shouting the loudest, but because we're doing great work, that we are becoming outstanding in what we do, because we hold ourselves to a higher accountability, we hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we have this intention of going out into the world to be outstanding. Because mediocre, I mean, the world is full of mediocre, and I think to strive to be or to become outstanding is probably one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves permission to actually be. So I want to invite you to step into your unique brilliance, to really know your heart and what you want to do, what you would love to do, what your capabilities are, recognizing your unique brilliance and then stepping into that, owning that. It's the thing that sparks you, that gives you that sense of being alive. And I remember when I worked my last corporate position, I worked in a cubicle. I was doing mundane, uninspired work. I knew I had so much more to offer. And when I went to speak to my manager about, I want to do more, she just gave me more of the same work. And that wasn't really what I meant. I meant I want to do more. I wanted to do different things. I wanted to step out, and I was so much more capable of doing more than just filling in forms and being in this cubicle. And I remember I felt as though I was dying a little every day. And then I gave myself permission to fire that job, and it took me a while to figure out what on earth I was going to do, but I gave myself permission to dig deep, to recognize what my unique brilliance was, and then give myself permission to step into that. And I want to invite you to do the same, to step into that unique brilliance and live your life and shine and take that wonderful light that's inside each of us, step into the world with it, whatever that looks like for you, and just step forth into that unique brilliance so that you are sparkling every day, and that it's the stuff that you really, really want to do, because you can do that. That is possible. And I'm going to give you some tips and techniques to help that happen as we go through this program. So step in to your unique brilliance. And I think this summarizes that whole idea of stepping into your unique brilliance really, really well. Liking yourself, that's a little bit of self-love that comes from the self-care part we were talking about earlier. Liking what you do, so finding the things that you enjoy, because that will give you that spark every day. And then liking how you actually do it, how you're showing up, how you are bringing your uniqueness to the world. If you can like yourself, like what you do, and like how you are doing it, you are going to be so fulfilled on so many levels. You will have created the life of your dreams, and you will become everything that you can become. And I think there's nothing more amazing than to become your full potential, and nothing more sad in the world for somebody not to step into that uniqueness and become their full potential. When I see people that aren't doing what they love, or are holding them back, or they don't realize they're holding themselves back, and the sadness that's in their eyes, and then when they break through and they step into it, the sparkle and the beauty and the love that bursts forth is just so humbling to behold. And that's probably the thing that drives me, is if I can enable one or two people in the world to break free from this fear of stepping out into the world and get out there by liking themselves, liking what you do, and liking how you're showing up every day, there is no greater gift. There really isn't a greater gift. Now, they say the teacher teaches what they most want to hear. And this, being completely open with you, is my thing. The opposite of not doing everything isn't being lazy. The opposite of not doing anything isn't being lazy. And I have to tell myself that all the time, because I've been talking about self-care and I push myself to the limits. And then I realize that I have to take some of my own medicine here, because I need to stop. And stopping and recovering is not the same as stopping and being lazy. So maybe the companion to hard work, or working so hard and living your dreams, and healing must be taking time out to rest. I always used to say, and I suppose I still do, that I'm either on 100% or I'm off. I'm on or off. And when I'm off, I feel like I'm being lazy. But when I'm off, it's when the healing and the rest comes and the recovery comes, so that I can then step out into the world and do more great things and keep going. And then I need to stop and rest. And if I don't stop and rest, then my body usually starts breaking down. I get ill, I get a cold, I might come out in spots, an eye infection, lose my voice. All these kinds of things can happen when your body goes, whoa, you've not booked in time, I'm going to book it in for you. So this is a big learning point for me, and I want to share it with you. The opposite of not doing everything isn't being lazy. Maybe the companion to working so hard and living your dreams and healing must be rest. So bear that in mind. Tina, note to self, make sure we're building in time to rest. Otherwise your body's going to just give up and you're going to be forced into that, and that might not be quite so convenient. So I thought it would be appropriate at this point to remind you of some of the universal laws. Now, some of these you might already be familiar with, and some of them might be new for you, but I thought it was worth mentioning them and applying them in this mindset program. Now, you may have already heard of the law of attraction, the idea that like attracts like, and if you keep positive thoughts, you're likely to get positive situations in life. And if you have negative thoughts over a prolonged period, you will start to reap negative outcomes. The reasons why riches are rich and poor are poor is due to the law of attraction. That's one universal law. Then there's the law of oneness. And again, this might be something that you've heard of or are familiar with the concept of, but perhaps haven't realized it is known as the law of oneness. And the idea there is that universally we are all one. That in the electromagnetic spectrum, and we're coming into a little bit of metaphysics here, that we are all connected. And the idea of one good deed leads to another, that we are receiving good into our soul when we're being kind and doing good things, positive things out in the world, that it's all connected, and that we'll start to attract, and it has that kind of ripple effect, that consequence effect, that and again it ties into the law of attraction, but we are universally one, and that, I don't know, we could have a thought here, and then somebody millions of miles away could have the same thought, and at some point they may connect. This idea of the law of oneness, and I think this is where our human need for connection actually comes from. It's actually grounded in this law of oneness. And then the universal law of gratitude, basically thanking, it could be God, it could be whoever your spiritual leader is, it could be thanking the universe as a whole, as a practice, and basically sending out grateful thoughts. One of the things I do in my journaling practice is to basically sit down and write in my journal the things I'm really grateful for. And what I found is when you are grateful and you start to bring up those grateful thoughts and emotions for all the good things that we receive, that it ensures that universe or God notices that and then is going to send you more. That's the idea, is the more grateful you are for what you have, the more you will get. If you're in that kind of negative place where, oh, nothing's going well, this isn't what I want, I'm not happy, I want more, you're coming from a place of lack, and rather than from a place of gratitude, I'm really grateful for this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and this, and I would really like to do this, this, and this, is much more positive spin on the whole thing. But you can't be stressed, you can't be negative, and you can't be frustrated when you're in a place of gratitude. So go to that place of being grateful and thanking and being thankful, being grateful, and appreciative of what you have. I remember my grandma always used to say I was ungrateful as a child, but I think that's because I did know I wanted to do more with my life. But this idea of being really thankful for what you have, you know, the shoes on your feet, the dinner on the plate, the roof over your head, and then moving on from there. We have so much abundance in the world that we can be grateful for and show gratitude for. So I came across these 9, I don't know, maybe rules to live by that Steve Jobs is attributed to saying. And there's some concepts in here that I hadn't come across before, but I wanted to share them with you because I thought they were really very poignant, especially as Steve Jobs is such a well-recognized figure, but also for the fact that he's now no longer with us. I thought it was just very poignant when I read this. So number 1, learn to anticipate the future. Obviously, in what he did, he was absolutely outstanding at doing that. Focus on the positive. We've talked about this idea of having a more positive mindset, a good attitude is another way we describe it. And then the third point was something I'd not come across before, was this idea of failing forward. And the more I looked at this idea, the more I realized that we talk about there's no such thing as failure, they're just learning points. And certainly in my business life, when I had a business in the UK, there was things that I really felt that had been a complete failure for me. But at the same time, as long as I didn't dwell in the negativity of the failure, but to look at the positives that I was able to learn from that, and to this idea of failing forward. Yes, we messed up. Yes, there was stuff that wasn't great, but what did I learn from that? And then taking that learning into the next business. And this idea of failing forward. I've also seen it written, fail fast, try things out, fail fast, learn from it, move on. So this idea of failing forward. And then I started talking to my business coach, and she was talking about this idea of growing forward, which it's like, yeah, that is really what we do, isn't it? When we feel like we've had a failure, which is quite a negative connotation to stuff that we've just had to work through that hasn't gone the way we wanted it to, we grow forward because we are taking that learning, we've grown from it, and we're carrying on, we're taking another step, we're keeping on moving. And I think so many businesses maybe fail at the first hurdle, but it's only failure if you stop. If you can grow forward, then it really helps us to develop, and it helps us to keep going. And I've read somewhere else as well where the only true failure is when we give up on our dream. I mean, that's the sad part. But if we can fail forward or grow forward, and take that learning and kind of dust ourselves down and just take the next step and keep the momentum going, then we continue to expand, we continue to gain fulfillment and enjoy our lives. Point 4 was travel the world. There is nothing like travel to broaden your horizons, as they say, but to really broaden your outlook. Certainly being British, being raised in the UK for 40 odd years and then moving to the USA, there has been so many differences that I didn't anticipate. But what I love to do is to embrace those differences and to kind of hold them up and go, oh yeah, what we do here is very different to what we do here in the US, or what we did in the UK is very different to how we do things in the US. And that's okay, and we kind of celebrate those differences. That's certainly what I do in a lot of my speaking. We're looking at different cultures. We're looking at the way words are expressed or spelt. It's just a great honour to have these differences and embrace them. And travel is the one way that we can do that. We can look at things through a slightly different lens and gives us an appreciation of people in the world at large, which I think is an amazing thing. So number 4 on Steve Jobs' list here is travel the world. Number 5, finding the right partner. I've been married to David now for 27 years. Oh my goodness me. And I can't remember what life was like without him, although I do remember I did have life without him. But I find it so, I don't know, he has been my soul partner. He has allowed me, or I felt as though I've been allowed by being married to him to really step into my unique brilliance. And even though when we first started in our married life together, I was a little wobbly about whether or not this was something that I would be allowed to do, he has been the most supportive, loving, generous, kind, amazing person to go through life with. And I wouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I'm doing now, or would have achieved any of the stuff that I've achieved in my life without having such a supportive partner. So I do believe that finding the right partner is really important. 6, obstacles are opportunities in disguise. We talk about this a lot in sort of general business. But when you do see a challenge, I remember my first challenge when I had my home staging business. I went to see my first agent, my first estate agent, and he said, Tina, why is the advice you can offer any better than the advice my sister-in-law could give? And I thought, that's a jolly good question. And it was obviously an obstacle. But rather than seeing it as a blocker and stopping me from moving forward, it was like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to document the method of staging houses and how I would do it and the standard I want to set. And again, it's about being outstanding. And I turned that obstacle into an opportunity. And we put together a training program that we had accredited through a third party organization that basically said, these are the objectives, the learning objectives that you're going to achieve, and this is how we're going to measure them, and this is the system that we can apply to that, so we can actually demonstrate those learning objectives have been met. And that turned our training into something that was so well received and well respected that when I got challenged again on, why is the advice you're giving any better than anybody else's, I could say, because we're setting the standard for home staging in the UK. And that was our opportunity to step into our brilliance our unique brilliance to become outstanding in that industry. So obstacles are definitely opportunities in disguise. Take a few risks. They do say don't risk more money than you can afford to lose. I have taken risks with money, and would I say regret it? At the time, it was like, what the flipping heck am I doing? But I have taken those risks. But again, it's one of those things you kind of work through, and it kind of grows your emotional muscle somewhat. So by taking risks, by daring to do something, even though you feel it's a little bit risky. For me recently, just stepping into this whole idea of wanting to put a program together, a business retreat together, but inside that business, tools and techniques and tactics that we use and strategies to actually build in this whole idea of working with your mindset. I felt that was a bit of a risk, and I'm kind of standing out there going, this is some of the stuff that works for me. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. You're not my person. And to be bold enough to be able to do that is important. But this idea of taking risks, absolutely, it's the only way to grow. Surround yourself with great people. And again, we've talked about having the positive group of people rather than the naysayers around us, but also people with better capabilities. I am not good at everything, so I try and build my team around my weaknesses. I know when I was going through my management training when I worked for corporate back in my 20s, they would talk about strengths and weaknesses and how you had to know your strengths and then build on your weaknesses. I think the thinking now has changed dramatically, and certainly it's not something I subscribe in my own business. If you're bad at it, identify it early and get people that are better than you to do that stuff. Yes, you might need to have an appreciation of it so that you know they are doing a good job, but the idea that you can be good at everything, I think we just need to park that and just put that to one side, because that is not reality. It's much better that if you can hand something that you're not good at over to somebody that's much better at it than you, so that you can focus on what you are good at. And certainly when we look at scaling business, I remember my accountant in the UK, she said, write down the things that you really enjoy doing and the things that you're really good at, and then write down the stuff that you're bad at doing and the things you hate. And then the things like below that line, the things that you're not good at and the things that you really don't like doing, hand them off to other people. And that's how I've been able to grow my business and also know the skill sets that I need to bring into the business. So surround yourself with great people. And number 9, remember, you'll be dead soon. And obviously, Steve is no longer with us. So I think this is very poignant that at the end of it, live your life to your fullest extent, step into that unique brilliance, do everything you can to build that emotional muscle so that you're stretching yourself every day, all the time, building that team around you, making time for yourself, because at the end of it, this life, I was going to say, is the only one you get. The idea is that this life is the one that you need to be living to its fullest. There is nothing after that, and once you've gone, you've gone. So make the most of it while you can. So I don't know how many of you know this, but I spent 15 years in corporate IT. I worked as a project manager, a business analyst, and there was always this saying that if it's not working, then unplug it and switch it back on again in a few minutes, and it will come back to life. In fact, when I ran the help desk, that was the first piece of advice that we would give people, was switch it off, count to 10 and switch it back on again. And it's so true. Most things will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, and that includes you. And that might be as simple as taking a walk. When I'm working from home and I'm flicking from one piece of work to another piece that needs different kind of mindset or concentration or focus, I will go outside and just walk around the garden and just get some fresh air, and then it's my idea of switching off for a few minutes and then coming back to it. So it can be taking a few minutes in the day. It could be going for that run, which I love doing in the morning. That kind of clears my head, so I'm really focused for the day's work. Or it could be taking 2 or 3 days off. Or taking the weekend and going away and unplugging. So you're not checking your phone, you're not on a computer, and you're just taking some downtime. So this idea of making time for self-care, it's not a luxury, it's an absolute necessity as a business owner. And recognizing that the tension that we have in our body is often caused by some form of trapped emotion. When we get shoulder tension, that weighs us down with the burdens and responsibilities that we have. Neck tension can be fear and repressed self-expression. So when we're not being authentic, when we're trying to hold back something and not be truly authentic, that can turn up as neck tension. Upper back, grief, sorrow and sadness. I can certainly recognize that when my mum passed away in 2016, I felt very burdened, but I certainly had the most amazing back pain. And it was the weight of the grief and the sorrow and the sadness that I had in my heart at that time, and I really had to work hard at recognizing it and then actually taking some action. I went to see someone who worked on various modalities, and she could just take one look at my face and recognize where all my tension was. The middle back is insecurity or powerlessness, and then the lower back is guilt, shame, and unworthiness. And I think we suffer from this as women generally. I don't know if you're like me, but I go around with this massive bag of guilt. I remember having it as a young mother when my kids were very young. I always used to think of it as being like a ball and chain that I would be dragging around with me, that I was working and I was putting the kids into childcare each day, and I was so guilty about it. And there was people in the office, some older gentlemen that probably shouldn't have said what they said to me, but it was like, how can you do that and come back to work? Because they were coming from an older generation, and the guilt just weighed on me so badly. And even today, when I'm working from home or I'm going for that run or taking that time for self-care, it's very easy to get into guilt and thinking, well, should I be taking this time off for myself? My team's working so hard, and yeah, I'm able to take some time off. And then I have to remind myself that that's what I pay them for. And, we're working with them so they're not having to work so hard, but at the end of the day, that hard work means that we have a sustainable business going forward. And I have to kind of put down that guilt, put down any feelings of unworthiness that, I'm getting an easy life from this, because I do work hard. I might not be there every day, but I'll turn up in evenings, and I'll do the weekends, and I'll be there when I need to be, and I'll be taking phone calls at 9 o'clock at night, and I'll be working. So put it down, Tina. Put the guilt down. But again, if you're getting lower back problems, that could be where that tension is coming from, for the fact that you have got these trapped emotions. And recognizing it is halfway to refocusing on that, and again, a little shift in mindset can start to release those tensions, and those emotions can be released, and you will feel so much better in your body as well as your mind. So I've talked a lot about some of the problems we face as business owners. I've talked about the benefits of working on mindset, but how do we actually build that emotional muscle? What are the practical things that we can do as business owners that we can fit into our lives? Because without having a great intent, without having a really positive attitude, without having a mindset that's going to help us break through the challenges, which will inevitably happen on a day-to-day basis, we're not going to grow our business. Tony Robbins says that a business growth is often held back by the growth of the owner. And I can see that. I see that. I mean, you might hear it and think, yeah, right. How does that really apply? But having run businesses for so many years, I recognize when I am at those hurdles, and that if I don't have the support, the community, which is why I want to be a support resource for other people, I know it's needed. And I certainly reach out to coaches and support networks to help me with my mindset, because you can only go so far on your own. And how to build that emotional muscle, I think, is first recognizing that it needs to be built, and that's what we've been talking about. But then how do we actually go about our daily lives to build it? So things like getting a coach, having a support network, meeting with like-minded people, surrounding you with the right community, stepping away from the naysayers, all helps to build on that. So one of the most helpful tools that I have used in over decades, must be 30 years now. Oh my gosh, that makes me feel so old when I say that out loud. Is this idea of journaling. I first came across it in my late 20s. A gentleman called Mike Dooley. He writes notes to the universe. I'd recommend it. He writes as though he is the universe speaking, and often it hits the nail on the head of how you're feeling on that particular day. And he sends those out every day, 5 days a week, every week of the year. And I first came across the idea of journaling through some of his teachings and books. There's a number of books there. As a result, I have had a hardback journal. I'm just wondering if I've got one with me here. I do. So it's a hardback journal, and I have got dozens of these books. It usually takes me a year or so to fill a full book. I don't write in it every day, although you could. I tend to use journaling when I need to, and it's usually each week, but it could go for several weeks, and then I just do a complete brain dump. And what I find is, if I'm busy and I don't have time for journaling, it's like I need to have, and I call it a late start. So maybe I don't need to be anywhere until later in the day, or maybe I'm just working from home that day, which facilitates the fact that I can have a late start, because I have to keep reminding myself, I work weekends, I work evenings, I'm never off. So a bit of me time, and this builds into that idea of something that you can do for yourself. And I will have a late start. And the way I like to journal, and everybody is different. Some people like to journal in the evening. I like to journal in the morning before I get out of bed. So I'm awake. I've got my glasses, because I wear contacts normally. So I have my glasses at the side of the bed. I've put my glasses on, reach across for a pen and my journal, and I will basically do a brain dump of how I'm feeling, the fact that I've not written in my journal for a while, some thoughts that are going through my mind, some challenges that I might have. And it really does help invoke mindfulness. It makes you really think about your life, what's going well, what you'd like to do better, some of the challenges that you have, you write those down. And I find it a really good time in the morning. It really helps me to channel. And what I mean by that, I think in that morning, that first hour of the morning, I might wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock, put the lamp on if it's dark, get my glasses on, get my journal out. And sometimes, even if I don't know what I want to write, I just write to the journal, and I'll say, it's been a while since I last wrote. I always put the date so I can see when the last time I wrote. And when I go back through my journal for ideas or for inspiration or whatever it might be, or a great idea I've had and I've written it down and it hasn't been the right time to implement it, but it's the right time later, I'll go back through the journal. So each time I write in the journal, I put the date so I know when it's from. And I might be talking about people that are in my life at that time or people that are working for me at that time. And owning a couple of tea rooms, I've had a lot of different people that have been working for me over the time. So I kind of go back and it's like, oh yeah, that's what happened with so-and-so or what have you. But I can go to the journal and I just start writing, I need to get stuff out of my head. I just start writing any thought. I really want to focus today on this challenge. I really want to just sit and write in my journal today. And then once I start writing, stuff starts coming up for me. And even if I'm just saying, what's coming up for me today is, or I did this at the weekend and I had a lot of fun doing it and I want to do more of this. Or I worked really hard over the weekend and I am so exhausted, I really need to make some time for myself. And today is going to be that day. And maybe I'll write that into the journal. But it invokes mindfulness. And then I can channel. And like I said, when I wake up in the morning, I also get this when I'm in the shower. It's like that moment of inspiration. But when I'm journaling, it basically, I'm opening up the universe to, I need some ideas on how to solve this problem. I'm open and I'm just going to channel thoughts and inspiration. What is coming up for me as I'm writing? This is coming up for me. And what about, have you thought of this? And have you thought of that? And it starts to invoke that mindfulness, but it also starts to actually document some of those goals that you may have. And it helps get clear. Oh my gosh, it is so helpful on how to actually get all that jumbled up stuff that happens in your life down on a piece of paper. And I would so recommend journaling. In fact, I'm contemplating doing a podcast around the whole idea of journaling, because I think that is something that I do. I'm not saying I do it well, but I do it so consistently. I think that it's something that would add benefit and value to people. So I think journaling is my thing, and I think it's going to be a thing going forward in my coaching business, in my practice. So absolutely recommend the whole concept of journaling. It's probably the best tool I can share with you, my top secret of how to move through challenges and to be super focused and to really start getting the noise out of your head and onto the page and start developing where you see your business going. It's the best tool I've ever come across for helping to do that. So if that helps, use it, is what I would say. So how do you build a personal journaling habit? Well, like I say, some people like to do it at night before they go to sleep. In fact, I can see the benefits of that, because I can imagine you would get all the stuff of the day onto the page, and then it means that you have a better night's sleep. So I can see that really working. But for me, I like to do it in bed when my husband's either gone to work or he's gone downstairs. I want complete quiet. I want time to contemplate. It's my thinking time. It's a little bit of me time. Maybe I've made a hot drink and I'm sitting in bed. I prefer to do it in bed than sitting on the couch, although I have done it on the couch occasionally. And I tend to do it in the morning rather than in the evening, although I have written stuff in the evening. And I've even taken retreat days, even though I haven't physically gone away or gone on a retreat or spent money doing a retreat. I've taken 2 days, which are my retreat sanctuary days, I turn off the phone. I tell people I'm not available. I might even go to the library. I might go for a walk, and I'm just thinking and contemplating, and I'm on my own, especially being in hospitality where you're dealing with lots of people all the time, you're talking to a lot of people, having a team, so that I'm always interacting with people, to actually have some quiet time. And I have to have quiet time. I can't be, although I'm very outgoing and I talk a lot and I'm in the room a lot, I do need that time for me where I'm just in my head. And then I'm taking those thoughts and emotions and I'm writing those down into my journal. Usually I do this, I don't know, how many times a week would I do it? I don't know. I think I do it when I feel I need to do it, or when there's something. It might be burdensome, it might be a concern or worry, it might be just a case of sitting down and documenting stuff, especially if I suppose I do it at least once a month, but I do it more frequently than that. I do have a structure where I'm kind of reviewing the business, what's going well, what equipment needs fixing, what's the next thing I need to spend money on, so I have some structure that I can go through. If I have nothing else to say, I can go through this structure and look at every facet of my business as a review, and I just write notes. It's a bit like having a meeting with yourself. Failing that, it might be I've got this problem or issue, or it might be that I've just woken up with this amazing idea. I just want to write it down because I don't want to lose it. Might not be the right time, don't have to do it all, but I'm going to capture the idea because it might present itself as an opportunity later. So those are the kind of things that I do. It might be that I've been thinking about things in the night and I've not been able to sleep, so then I want to get those things down on the page. You can build it to however you want it to be, but know that it's between you and the page, and you and the universe. I think that's how I kind of look at it, but I do find that building some kind of journaling habit doesn't have to be daily. I certainly don't do it daily, but there may be periods of time when I feel I have to do it daily, and that's good too. It doesn't matter as long as you know it's a resource you can use. And I do go back through reading my journals and pulling out ideas or thoughts I had once. So it's like, oh, I'm sure I documented that somewhere, this moment of inspiration on how to do it, and I'll go back and I'll kind of find it and maybe bookmark that page and go back to it, and then I have another notepad. Oh my gosh. So I have another notepad. So I have my journal, which is my hardback book, and then I have a notepad which has sheets that I can rip out, and I'll write, I'll basically take the ideas from the journal and put them into to-dos on my to-do list, and then that comes into the office. So I don't tend to bring the journal into the office, although sometimes I do. I try and keep my journal, my active journal, by the side of the bed so it's there, and then I transcribe ideas into bullet points of actionable steps I can take, and then I rip that sheet out of my notepad, which is more of I've got one here, look, a ring binder notepad. I'll rip that out, and then that becomes a to-do sheet. So this is one of my to-do sheets on a small piece of paper, and that will give me the things that I'm going to do today. So that's taking the big idea, getting it on paper, and then transcribing it from the journal, which was the origin idea, as I like to call it, and then I actually bring it through into actionable tasks once the time is right, which doesn't have to be immediate because you can't do it all. You have to kind of pace yourself a little bit, and patience is a bit of a virtue when it comes to that. So that's how I do it. There's no right or wrong. I hope that's giving you some inspiration on how to do that, and when you get stuck, journaling about it can often help clear the way. So I found this quote from John Maxwell, the idea of fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. So how I interpret that is try lots of stuff, And believe me, I've tried a lot of stuff in my life. I love variety. When you look at my business model, you will see that I do all sorts of stuff. But then things work, some things don't. Some things have a lot of energy behind them, which I tend to follow the flow of energy. And then I review the results. So maybe we deliver something in a particular way, and then we do a review, and it's like, are we going to do this again? Are we not going to do it again? So the idea of trying lots of stuff, reviewing how you felt about it and how successful it was, and it might be that it was mega successful, but boy, you don't want to do that again. What would we change if we were to do it again? So the idea of trying lots of stuff, reviewing it, and if you don't want to do it again, stop doing it, but learn from it. And this idea of failing forward or growing forward, growing from that experience of it. Well, I tried it, didn't really like it, or it's on an ideas list, but you know, the more I look at it, the more I really don't want to do it. And again, that's where the energy or the lack of energy comes in. So we can all have a zillion ideas. I do a little activity which is 50 ways, all the things you could do. Just do a brain, don't get it all in there. And then there'll be some things that pop up that will be easy for you to do. They feel attractive to you to do. There's lots of energy behind it. And that's really how I've built my business, is I've gone where the energy flows, not necessarily what I could do or what I'm going to make the most money at, although those factor into it. It's like, well, would I do it again? Do I want to do it again? Do I want to make the effort to do it again? Does that feed my soul? Do I want to do it again? And if it's like, well, you know, we made a lot of money on it, but I really don't want to do it again, then we don't do it again. So try lots of stuff, fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. Or try lots of stuff, review it, decide what you're going to carry on doing and what you're not going to do, and then grow from it and take that learning into the next cycle. That's my advice. So when I came across this, I recognised it as a quote, a saying that I'd come across before, and I'm putting it up here. I'm going to read it through for you because it might be a little bit hard for you to see. But then I read who had actually written this, and it really tugged at my heartstrings, knowing the circumstances in which this was written. So let me read it, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. So it's called Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. You playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fears, our presence automatically liberates others. Now, this was written by President Nelson Mandela in 1994. It was his inaugural speech. Now, I had heard this poem, this saying before, but it was only putting this program together that I recognized who had actually written this. And it was part of Nelson Mandela's inaugural speech as president. after being incarcerated for tens of years in South Africa. And when you read it, knowing the context of how it was written, it really tugs on the heartstrings, as though it hadn't already anyway. And although he talks about being a child of God, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Maybe you believe in the universe, and we just swap those words and we use them interchangeably. That is absolutely fine too. But isn't that what we've been talking about today? This idea of stepping in to your unique brilliance. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence in the world automatically liberates others. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. What a brilliant piece of writing. What an amazing sentiment. But how true is it that we feel like that? That our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Whew. I'm going to let that seep with you for a minute, and we'll regroup and move on. But I really, really wanted to share that with you and hope that that tugs on something deep inside you that gives you resolve to step into your greatness. And so it is. So I want to talk a little bit about setting boundaries. We try and be all things to all people as a woman, I think. We try to be the mother, the husband. We try to be the mother, the wife, the business owner, try to take it all on ourselves, to be some kind of Wonder Woman. And then we start getting resentful because our clients are calling us after hours, that our team members are making demands on us when we're out and about and we're not able to do stuff. There's always somebody kind of pulling at your time. And the best way of managing that is to start setting boundaries. And that's what I want to talk about next. So here is an example of some ground rules that we can implement when we're perhaps say having a meeting or getting together, or it's something that we do when we're on our retreats. The ground rules. Everyone has an equal chance to speak. One person speaks at a time. Speak clearly and concisely. It's okay to disagree, but do it with respect. And be willing to let go of your point of view, basically just being open. Or it could be that it's about the process, not the people. We're looking to turn problems into opportunities. We're practicing mutual respect. We're maintaining a positive attitude. And we're never going to leave a disagreement unspoken. So what I mean by that is I disagree, and I'm going to carry on kind of chuntering about the fact that I disagree or don't agree with that. So let's get it out there. Let's express ourselves in the disagreement rather than just holding it in and getting stressed by holding it in. And then throw out all of your fixed ideas on how to do things. Because sometimes you get into that, well, that's how we've always done it, that's how we've always done it, or is there a better way? And sometimes it's the quality of the questions that you ask that give us better answers. But again, part of the ground rules might be asking the question, why do we do it like that? And is there a better way? And titles and positions don't matter. Understand and be productive as possible. So just some ideas of what some of the ground rules might be. And I've got a few more here. This is actually from a daughterhood declaration, and it's all about setting boundaries. And this is: just because someone asks you to do something doesn't mean you should. People will make unreasonable demands. Just because they ask doesn't mean you have to say yes. It's not your job to make everyone comfortable, even in business. Someone else's annoyances isn't a sign of your incompetence. It's a sign of her discomfort. Get in the habit of noticing the difference. It will never feel good to set a boundary, but it won't kill you. You will be okay. Guilt is the ego's sneakiest disguise. If guilt is motivating you to say yes, then you want or need to say no, then it's limiting the impact you were born to have. So setting boundaries is good. Set boundaries within yourself. Treat your desire for perfection like you would an actual person who is making suggestions that require a firm no. Call a good girlfriend, get a boundary sponsor, a friend who will support you and give you perspective. Remember, you being more important than your being is more important than your doing. You don't need to do it anymore in order to make up for something you think is missing in who you are. You are perfect and you are enough without doing anything. So that is what I've just read from, and I think that is very good as far as setting boundaries is concerned. And no is a one-word sentence. You don't have to give a reason. No, that's not what we're doing, or no, I can't do that, or no, I'm sorry. And I think saying no is probably the hardest thing that we as women and as women business owners struggle with. I was talking to a potential guest who was looking to book a group with us, and she was on the phone to me. She says, I'm trying to book this and I'm told that I only have I can't choose off the menu. And I said to her, so how many's in your group? She said, I've got 13 coming in, and we all want to select off menu. Now, we have a policy in the tea room where if you have a group of 8 or more, you have a choice of 2 menu options. Now, there's variety within those options, but we basically are not allowing you to order off menu once the number of people gets too big for us to manage. Because what can happen is if we had 13 people in, all having different things off the menu, we only have 1 cook, 1 stove, 1 oven, no holding, as in we can't hold food hot, and we can only do up to 8 different things at a time. If it goes beyond that, it's going to take far too long, the food's not going to come out all together, and it's going to be a really bad experience for the guest. As a result, we have this rule that says 8 people of policy, 8 people or more, you have a choice of A or B menu. And this lady wasn't happy at all, and I think she was expecting me to change my mind. And it's like, I know that you're going to get a really bad experience if I was to compromise on this rule. And I said to her, would you like to go ahead or would you like to cancel? Because I would rather not take that piece of business and be mediocre and not outstanding as one of my principles that I hold in my business. I'd rather say no to that business than offer her what I knew would be an absolute nightmare. It would be bad for the kitchen, it would be a bad experience for her, and we would get a negative review, and I was not prepared to take that risk, and it's just one of my standards. So we can set boundaries, and that is one of the boundaries that we have chosen to set for very good reason. We have come unstuck on this in the past. And again, when we try things out, how do we do things better next time? What are we prepared to do? What are we not prepared to do? And then suddenly you end up with a policy, and that was our policy. I'm sorry, my dear, 13 people cannot order off menu. Would you like to continue with your reservation on our terms, or would you like to cancel and find another location that can accommodate your request? Simple, but you have to know what you stand for, and this is all about setting boundaries. So here are some signs of healthy boundaries, just to get you kind of thinking about this, and again, sort of stretching that mindset a little bit. So saying no without guilt, ask for what you need or want, take care of yourself, again, without guilt. Saying yes because you want to, not because of the obligation that you feel you're under, or because you want to please others. Behaving according to your own values and beliefs. And feel safe to express difficult emotions and have a disagreement. It's okay if we don't see eye to eye on this. In that case, we're probably not a good fit. That's okay. I'm okay with that. Feel supported to pursue your own goals. Again, that's about having the right team or the right people in your life. Being treated as an equal. You're not going to be put down by people. It's like, no, this is how it works. Taking responsibility for your own happiness and not feeling responsible for someone else's. And also being in tune with your own feelings. Knowing who you are, what you believe, and what you like. All signs of setting up healthy boundaries. So let's look at one area that you can work on quite easily. And I call it eliminating annoyances. Now, the first time I did this exercise, and everything I talk about, it's not stuff I've read in a book, it's stuff I've actually implemented in my own life and my own business. And I went through this exercise of eliminating annoyances a couple of years ago. And I was really annoyed. And the idea is that you start writing down all the annoyances, all the things that annoy you. It could be how, or I don't know. Okay, I'll give you some examples to my life. Really get annoyed when my husband cooks, but he never wipes down the cooker. He never wipes down the stove top. It seems to be my job. That just seems to be how the workload works out. How I'm the one that empties the bins. So it could be an annoyance. I don't think it is, but there's stuff like that that could get annoying if it's like, this is so annoying. So you need to say something and stand up and set some boundaries to it. So a couple of years ago, I was doing this eliminate annoyance exercise. And what was really annoying both me and my husband was there was this car that looked like it was abandoned just outside our house. It was outside my office window. And it had been there for not just weeks, but it was turning into months. And it's like, what is going on here? I'm surprised that the Homeowners Association hasn't had it towed by now. I wonder if it belongs to the people next door. So we were kind of going through it, but it was getting really annoying. And then, 1 month turned into 2, into 3, and it's like it's still sitting there. It just looks like an abandoned car on our frontage. And it had a flat tire, and it was an old car. It really did look like an abandoned car. And it was like, well, I'm going to get rid of that annoyance. What are we going to do? So are we going to go next door and ask them to move it? How are we going to do that? Am I going to call the police and inform them that I think there's an abandoned car there and let them sort it out? Should I contact the Homeowners Association who deal with stuff like this? So what I did is I reached out to the Homeowners Association. I said, are you aware of this? And they came back and said, yes, we are. We are looking to write to the homeowner. And I'm thinking, well, is it the person next door? Does it belong to the person next door? I just wanted the Homeowners Association to know that it wasn't ours and it wasn't our responsibility. So when I saw the neighbour outside the next week, I said to her, do you know whose this car is? Because it's been here for some time, and I don't know if it's been abandoned or not. And she went, oh no, that's ours, and the engine blew up, and we've been meaning to move it, and we just haven't got to it yet. And I said, I was just hoping that the Homeowners Association wouldn't think it's ours, and she says, no, we will. We'll get to move it. And a week later, they managed to roll it onto their driveway and move things around, and the annoyance went away. But that was just one example of something that was kind of like really starting to wind us up, and we were spending energy getting annoyed at it rather than just doing something about it. So a great exercise is to write out a whole list of annoyances and then put an action plan together on eliminating them. What can you do about it? Is it that you need to set a boundary? Is it something you need to go and talk to somebody about? Is it something that you're just not going to accept? And let people know that and eliminate those annoyances. So I want to talk a little bit just to kind of end this session about the idea of being proactive in fulfilling your personal needs. When I say your personal needs, I'm talking about what you want from life. So it could be the simple things, and this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's shown as a pyramid. You might have seen this before, you may not have. But the idea is that before you can satisfy any needs, you've got to start with the basic physiological needs, which is air to breathe, water to drink, food and shelter, sleep, clothing. Then we go up to the next level. So people that are sort of sleeping on the streets, they don't get this. They don't have the shelter. So they're really at the bottom of the pyramid. Safety. So that's when you want personal security. You want security in having a job, the resources that you have available to you, maybe resources around health, property, so that you're feeling security, you're feeling secure in your life, that you're not under a job threat, that you are not worrying about not being employed, you have food in the fridge, that you have your health, and if you suffer from poor health, that you have the healthcare support that you need. So this is all about being safe. So physiological needs is what you need just to get by. Safety needs are this idea for security. The next level up is about love and belonging, and this is this idea that we all need some form of sense of connection, some family, some intimacy, some friendship, and we need to belong. So having that love and belonging is the next hurdle. And if you don't have friends, or if you've moved to a new country and you've not built up connections yet, you will yearn for that. The next level up is around esteem, self-esteem. So you need to start building. You need to start building respect, or people need to be showing you respect. Have a level of self-esteem. Maybe status and recognition is important. To have some form of freedom. So although you want security, you also want freedom. And then at the very top of the pyramid, when all those other things are in place, then you have this desire to becoming the most that you can be. A lot of people are at this level, providing they've, maybe they've built a family, they've got a home, they're working, and then they have this need, maybe a little later in life, where they come to this idea of self-actualization, which is the desire to become the most that they can be. And if you can get into that zone, you will start finding that you have a very fulfilling life. But think about where you are, where maybe you've got some gaps in this pyramid, and look at how you can proactively fill your personal needs. So that's the end of looking at mindset. Do some of the activities I've suggested along the way. You will find it very helpful. And contemplate it, journal about it a little bit, and make that list of, and look at how you can remove the annoyances in your life. And until next time, bye for now.